Alright, hopefully we're live. I guess we'll see. 2 o'clock in the morning, why not? Do some programming. Bum, 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 bum. Let's see if anyone turns up. And it's Mr. Canty first up. Well done. Give it a couple more and then we'll get on the move with this. Right, Paul. So first time in a couple of weeks I've had a chance to sit down and try to do a streaming of some programming. Hey Mark. Yeah, I'm staying up late. 2 o'clock in the morning here in Australia. Or at least this part of Australia. Hey, Trinity MDR. Alrighty. Well, basically, I was supposed to live stream the programming of this particular piece of software about a week ago when I originally did it up, but things just didn't work out, so I still went ahead and did it. I'm coding software for this modem. Goodness gracious, it is like multimeter. It's all Bluetooth, so it's all freestanding. It's running off AA batteries. This thing goes for about a week non-stop on AA batteries with Bluetooth running, which is pretty good going as far as I'm concerned. It's certainly easier than 9-volt batteries. You're not a mod. Oh no. Yeah, the things I forget to do. There we go. That'll appease your needs. You collected another one. So at the moment, you've probably seen I have got this multimeter to work with Open Broadcaster. So like if I get this running, so like the only thing I've got a problem with this is that I have to run it as there we go. Run it as super user. It's just something to do with the Bluetooth facility. There's probably a way to make it accessible by the user, but yeah, not right now. And then I can add a text source. I just realized this one isn't generating a text source. Right, that works. And let's see if an outline on that. Should change that to nice stylish impact text. By the way, sorry if the audio is a little echoey. That's just the nature of the fact that I am in my workshop, in my administration office. Okay. Alright, so there we go. We've got our multimeter output. Let's see. I forgot about you, Mark. What degree do I have? I do not have a degree, would you believe? I studied for 4.5 years at university, initially doing computer systems engineering, which is things like my brain is really at it. Microcontrollers, all that sort of thing. Sort of like the bridging between the software and the hardware. After a while, I changed over to just pure computer science, which is essentially mostly a mathematic course, contrary to the title. If you go into a true computer science degree expecting to actually be learning about computers, you'll be sorely disappointed. It's all about the algorithms, the theories, and all this sort of mathematical type stuff behind making computers work, not the hands-on programming languages or anything. You will learn programming languages, but that's more as a tool to extend or practice what you're learning. Not, your course isn't there to teach you programming. They'll give you a little book and say, here you go, learn C or learn Java or whatever, but that's about it. So anyway, I didn't finish my degree. I went off and traveled around the world doing computer work instead. And came back, and then my professor, Dean, he said, what do you want to finish for? He says, yeah, you've already got everything you need, so just go out there and do your own thing. And that's where I've been ever since. Anyway, so there we go. We can see that the meter, the on-screen lags slightly from the meter, but that's not too bad. The update on the meter, I think it's about 3 or 4 times a second, but on the screen it's only once a second. So what we're going to add is a logging facility to this particular piece of software so that it can keep track of things. Does the output mode handle switching? Yeah, I mean, it's like, there we go. It's all pretty seamless. There we go. And it just sort of keeps following it. "27 degrees, yeah, that's about right. Microamps, milliamps, amps. And then if we switch over to that, this is your typical combination. Diode mode, continuity mode, capacitance mode, and back to standard resistance. So that all works nicely. Windows 10 Help Center. Oh yeah, absolutely not. Don't get me wrong, I work on Windows all day, every day with my customers, but I don't personally choose to use it. Computers, tech as a service industry, which I find handles experience better than traditional education. Yeah, that tends to be true. I think things change. If you create a university course based on your current programming languages or your current software, then it's going to be out of date before you even probably finish the first semester. But a proper course, a theoretical course such as computer science, where you're learning the theories behind everything that's built on top, then that tends to last with you pretty much, well, all of time until they come up with some new exciting theories. Things like scheduling and semaphores, just signal handling, all that sort of stuff. Once you learn that, then it applies to everything above that. And of course, real-world experience is then what you put on top of that. But as long as you've got that core base, it's very useful. Studying E right now, we learn C. Yeah, it's interesting to know that programming may not be my main job. Well, right. E in program. Now, you'll probably find learning C and doing firmware programming, things like that, is a pretty useful combination. As much as people don't really like to promote C anymore these days, it is still by and far the largest commonly used language out there that just works. It's very simple, it's cross-ported to everything. It does have its issues, like with memory management, things like that, but if you're pedantic about what you're doing, then it's very efficient, particularly for microcontrollers. I use it all the time. C++ I'm not really a big fan of. It's sort of like they tried to turn it into something easy to do large-scale application development into, and it just sort of went way out of hand. So I'm hoping that Go sort of takes over from there. I've got to learn C# as well soon because I need to do a Windows version of this particular software for this. But yeah, C# doesn't seem that much different from C or C++, but it's just a case of getting to know Visual Studio. Alright, anyway, let's get on with this. What I want to do, so let's put on a mode that just randomly puts out data. Volts. Yeah, they'll work. They'll just trickle away. No, you're back to 0 already. Alright, let's go for temperature. Nice boring temperature. Hey Joshua. Alright, so we want to do data logging on this. It's roughly, like I said, one entry per second, one update per second through the Bluetooth. So it's not really good for doing fast transients or anything like that. If you want to watch that sort of thing, you really need a storage scope, something that can handle a few gig samples a second. So this is really more for just long, slow data. It probably won't even get used as a general rule, but I'm going to put it in for the sake of doing it. So first thing I'm going to do is make sure we have the option put in here. This is just the help section. So replicate. And we'll request that the log has a file name. I'm not going to let it have a default on that because I think if people are logging, there's a risk that maybe they'll have a tendency, if they forget to set a file name, they will accidentally overwrite their old log file or modify it. Or I'll probably make it open log files in a pending mode so that the overwrite doesn't occur, but you still don't want to have the data being tainted. Is Linux your daily driver? Yes, it is. I use it I've been using it since the early 90s. I use most other operating systems as well, but for me, as personal choice, Linux is good. It's got its issues, but then what operating system doesn't? Alright, so now I'm going to jump down to handling the parameters. This is just some testing to make sure I do have an additional parameter. Log. It's not foolproof. This is really very bad. Very, very bad error checking. Hey, Digitcom. Yeah, no, it's been a while. Sort of running out of time a lot these days. Just realized I need to put the log file. Oops. Because this is all in just very straight plain C code. Nothing fancy at all. Alright. So what's going to happen is we initialize everything, we check the parameters, we do a few sanity checks here. And this here is where I'm cheating a bit with this program. All this program is just a filter of, and it reads the output from this GA, this GATT, or what is it, generic attribute for Bluetooth LE tool. That program, when I run it with the appropriate address, will bring up the notifications that this Bluetooth device produces. This particular multimeter is very simple. It really has no programmable parameters as far as a Bluetooth device goes. All it does is has one notification block, and that's all it just keeps doing. It just keeps repeating that, nothing else. So I run the GA tool, and it produces to standard output the data block that I need, and I read that data block in constantly, and then filter it, decode it, and produce whatever I need. So it's a bit of a cheat. There's no real Bluetooth programming in this particular bit of code, but I don't need to because that GA tool already exists in Linux, so I may as well use it rather than going through and making my own code. Unfortunately, for Windows, that's not available, so I'm going to have to work out how to access those notifications through C# and the new Windows Bluetooth API. Strangely enough, the Windows 10, Creators Edition, the update, only just now has brought out suitable APIs for the Bluetooth Low Energy, which is pretty crazy. Alright, if we've got a log file, we need to open it up. I'm just making up variable names here right now. I'll go back up and put them into the parameter variable list in a bit. Okay, put it in append mode. I know I can actually just simply go if not FL, but for these sort of situations, I like to be pedantic in my code, so it indicates clearly what I'm trying to do. Let me go and add that file handle. Okay. Okay. Now we also have to think about what format we're going to create in this log file. Ideally, to make it easy for whoever's reading it, you want it just all on one line per entry. You also want to try and make it as easy as possible for them to import into something like a spreadsheet without having to jump through all sorts of pre-processing hoops. Now, the other thing I've got to think about is the time stamping. The reason why time stamping is a bit of an issue on this, or could be, is I mentioned it produces about 1 output a second. Now, if I use the normal clock timer, which is like per second update, then there's a pretty good chance that over any given data set, there's going to be a degree of aliasing occurring where you will have 2 entries with the same timestamp on it. So we're going to need a higher resolution timestamp, something like a millisecond. We only really need a 1/10 of a second to make a difference, but we'll probably have to go for, we'll have to certainly read at microsecond level. Just for your information, for those working on Windows 10 home machines, the free show hide and hide Windows update, full creators update, click on advanced link and uncheck apply fixes. No, I'll see if a couple of my customers might get caught out by that. Let's see, so no. So first thing I want to do is get a date time. Now since I don't have a great memory, I'm going to try and find, there we go. That's one thing I do like about the internet and manual pages and things like that, is you really don't have to remember anything other than how to use them. So let's see. Okay, so this is time returns the number of seconds. We want something a little finer than that. Nope. Ah, come on. I don't very often use the ultrafine. I think it's get time of day. Yeah, here we go. Microseconds. Does a yellow light bulb keep mosquitoes away? I've never really found it to be very effective at all. Cheat sheet equals the internet. Too right. Absolutely. What we'll probably do is, to keep the data line moderately compact, is I will drop it down to one, just tenths of a second on the line, and leave it at that. Pardon me. I'm trying to decide now whether I should have a delta time or just simply reduce the full time. The reason why I'm wondering about that is because when you import this sort of data into a spreadsheet, some of them misbehave if you have a large data set. A large number with a very small variance relative to that number. So what is it now? We're up to a couple of 100,000 seconds since the epoch, and then we're going to log for, say, an hour. Then the difference between the start and the end relative to the absolute scale of the number is so tiny that some graphing software can get a little bit stupid. These are things we can work out later. So, let's see how to use this properly. Hey Mike, and this is going to want sys_time. Guess what we'll do here is we'll start the time from this point. The internet has a lot of rabbit holes one can go down looking for solutions. Always wear safety lines. Yeah, it's true, you can wear... It's not too bad to see, but with some other languages it can be quite ugly. Alright, get... Oh, come on. All day... do I really need a time zone? I'm already starting to dislike this function. See... C++, blah, 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 blah. I want C, not C++. Oh, here we go. We've got another one called clock get time. I think I might use that instead. Clock get time. Oh, what the heck's this time spec? I really am not a fan of functions that require you to prepare a whole lot of stuff beforehand before you can even use it, particularly for something like clock. I mean, I understand that it's nice to have the options, to have all the finer adjustments, but it's also good to have a generic, well, not a generic, a specific wrapper for the simplest solution. Let's see, time. Ah, ask time. Except that's not it. You're killing me. Maybe I'll just have to create a time zone. And I'll just create as a dummy variable. And that time zone needs to go on the outside. So this is all the stuff for decoding the data that I get in, handling what mode it is, how to handle the digits and data they've given us, all the different possible flags. I was lucky there was already someone on the internet who had partially decoded the block of data, but they left out a lot of different things and they made a few dud assumptions about how things were. They were thinking that particular integer values, they say like 49 or 50, were referring to things, but it was actually a combination of flags, bit flags, that gave that. And when you switch the knob on the multimeter, it would throw things out. So I went back through and decoded it in terms of bit flags instead. Anyway, alright, so this is the bit. This bit here is the one that generates the one for Open Broadcaster. Hey Vladimir. The reason why it's only Linux at this point is because I haven't found a nice, easy Bluetooth low energy template, so to speak, to be able to get the notification data that I need to do the decoding. If I can get that notification data in a fairly easy way, then it's easy enough for me to apply this decoding information program to it. But getting that information in Windows, particularly for something, say, Windows 7 or 8, it doesn't appear to be too easy at the moment. They didn't make it easy because they left out the whole API to do Bluetooth low energy. Standard Bluetooth they have, but not low energy. Let's see. Okay, if file name and file. So basically it's saying if we do have a log file name and we do have a valid log file, then we now produce our data. First thing we want to do is get our current timestamp and say get t1 comma time zone. Yeah. Well, for starters, we'll just dump it out raw. Zero effect. Let's see, a couple of annoying questions. Are you programming an on-screen multimedia display via Bluetooth? What dongle can be used to pair it on PC without Bluetooth? Why did you select the Owon? I selected the Owon because it runs on AA batteries. It uses Bluetooth Low Energy, and it was cheap. So like, this is just the straight B35. There's no... You can get the T, which is the true RMS. You can get the Plus, which has data logging built in. But this is just the straight plain cheap one. And it seems to have everything that I need. The count rate is about, I think it's about a 6,000 counts on this. So it's good enough for what we're doing in terms of diagnosing laptop boards and things like that. It is not a high precision meter. It is not a fast meter. But it's good enough for what we're doing. So that's that. As for the adapter on Linux, I've got two different ones. Let's see if I can... Let's see, what's this one? Looks like any of these ones that are CR8510, A10 based, they seem to work fine. I haven't had any troubles. I've tried two different ones, they work perfectly fine. There can be some odd conflicts going on if you have, if you've got other Bluetooth systems set up. I found when I initially started using this, it would constantly drop out or lag or just stop working altogether. And that turned out to be just another Bluetooth device going a bit crazy on it. As soon as I cleared everything out, it works fine. So it's, make sure that's still working. And look at that now. What? It looks like it's broken up. Oh, good on you, mate. Yeah, it's misbehaving again. I think my other Bluetooth things crept in. Anyway. It's on GitHub right now, so I'll once I've updated this logging, I'll push it up to GitHub and you'll be able to get to it. Right, I'm trying to think now how to do the values on this. So I don't want to do a units prefix change throughout the log file. Like I don't want to go from, pardon me, I don't want to go from ohms to kilo ohms and make, this is what I was talking about before, I don't want the person to have to post-process this data too much. So I'll need to pick a standard value, standard, and work with that. So like anything in ohms will just be in ohms. So if it's 1 mega ohm, it will be a million ohms. Otherwise, it just makes it too complicated. So I'm not sure how yet this is going to work out. I guess we'll see. This only has up to 4 decimal places. So 0.4, whoops, floating point. And then how to say what mode it's in, like are we in ohms mode, are we in capacitance mode and things like that. Then let's see, we could go, I'll try to put the units thing in there, but I'd rather something that's per character. Because if you go single character, you do have certain issues like how do you differentiate between temperature, Fahrenheit and Celsius, versus capacitance in farads. I suppose you could say capacitance would be, say, let's say C, even though it's a bit dodgy. And then what about frequency? We use a F for that, but then you've got, yeah, I have to think about that one. For now, I might just dump it as units. Alright, T1. Bluetooth 4. let's see, I'll get the GitHub for you, just hang on there. I did post it the other day somewhere. Here we go. Hey Chris, I see you've gifted us with your presence. Okay. Okay. This is going to be interesting. What I need to do is preform. All these things run through my head at once. I don't really get a chance to verbalize them. So I think we need a 64-bit integer. Alright, Vladimir, well, you have a good time. I'm just going to cut through the wee hours of the morning here. Where am I going? I don't know where I'm going. Here we go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to preform the number of seconds with the tenths of a seconds built in as a single whole integer. So I go 20I equals T0 dot TV sec times 10 plus TV usec. No, because we want tenths per second, we divide this by 100,000 because these are microseconds. Which is a million. Okay. Copy that line. Spit it out here and create our alternate version. Okay. So what we'll have is, we'll now just delete that. T1I minus T0I. And that'll be our tenths of a second. Do subliminal kind of message. So it just flashes up every so often. Extra speed. Is that? Oh, that's working. When we enter the secret Chris's cool code. One day. I've still got to put Easter eggs into Open Board View if I ever get back to working on that again. It's gone kind of quiet lately on there because I haven't been there causing trouble. There was a little bit of work done after I sort of said goodbye. I've got new ideas for what I want to do with it. Be interested to see whether I spin off on my own code for a little bit and then force it back together. Pianov hates it when I do that though, when I go off on my own tangent and don't merge back into the main code. He really, really hates me doing that. Sorry, Pianov. Well, that then gets changed to that. And that is our value of the meter, which is just the 4 digits that are up the top. And what do we need? Like units is the last one. Let's see how that works. The other thing we're doing is, because we don't know when this program is going to get terminated, we have to forcibly flush the file each time, which is a little bit wasteful, but in the bigger scheme of things, once a second being flushed is not a big problem. What I could do, or what I need to do, is put in a I have got one in here, but it's not quite working how I want, where you capture the Control-C, and when you hit the Control-C, it will go along and say, okay, the person wants to get out. So we need to flush the buffers and close the files. It's not quite happening as cleanly as I want, because at the moment what is happening is the program that I'm running, the GA tool, is capturing that Control C, and then my program picks it up here. It notices that the program's terminated, and it sort of goes, oh, the program terminated. So I suppose I should put the closing. In fact, I'll do that right now. If close fl, oops, if fl. Technically, I shouldn't have to do this. I shouldn't have to test to see if the file handle is valid. I should be able to just close it even if it's not valid or a null. But I found in some quirky systems it will cause a seg fault. So at least it used to. So I guess now you could say that I'm a bit habitual about doing it anyway. Yeah. Alright, that covers that. Oh, right. Didn't realize that was you, bend over. Watching Snow made paranoid. Is this the reason you're using Linux? No, I only use Linux because I'm a bit of a I've always been a Unix fan, so right from the early 80s. What headers are you using? Pretty standard headers. Standard IO, standard lib, integer, string, signal, and time. And if I get compiling errors, then I will add more. Mind you, they usually come out as just warnings on GCC. Let's see. I think that might be all we need for the moment. So let's see if we can compile this. Warning. May be used uninitialized. Fair enough. That makes sense. This is the only downside of the new GCCs, is they can be a little bit paranoid. So we'll just make it less paranoid here if I can. 2i equals 21i equals 0. That should keep that closed. Great, here we go. This is where the warnings get a bit annoying to me, because it's clear I'm testing it, but well, we'll add it to there too. So you end up with a lot more of this sort of initialization code that you normally wouldn't have. It's good pedantic practice to have, but it can be a bit frustrating, particularly if you've got old code base and you're now compiling it under a new GCC and you have all these things come up. I can disable the warning, like I'm compiling with warnings all, which is that W all thing there. So if I took that away, then it wouldn't give me this problem. But I do like to have that on there so that it forces me to keep the code updated and clear up these sort of things. And every now and then it actually solves a bug or two indirectly. Right, so we want to run the logger on this. Let's see. Owon.log. Insufficient parameters. What? And we've got our first bug. Joy. What did I forget? Ah, I know why. Or do I? No, that was just my brain telling me lies. Oh, I know what I did. I forgot my break. Alright, theoretically that should now be logging, or is it? Yep, it should be logging. So let's have a look. And file. And there we go. How can you differentiate the small m for microvolts and millivolts? There's on this particular one, there's no microvolts. It's not that good a meter. On my ProTech, I did have that, but no, on this, it's got the 3 different amperage. Let's actually try that. Okay, so you can see I've got microamps there, and then milliamps, and then amps. So, but the micro is prefixed with the mu character on the screen as opposed to an M. And same with the millivolts. So yeah, it's not a problem. Have you tried to assert? No, I actually don't use asserts very much at all. I find them to be problematic later on. They are, if you go through the open board view software, you'll find there are asserts in there, and they have caught us out several times. The asserts were put in there by Chlorodite, and they're useful if you're in a development environment and you want things to just stop dead, and you don't mind that. But in a consumer user environment, it's better to have a more of a soft failure where you come up and you say, look, this isn't right, put up an error message, give the user a chance to do something about it, or just ignore it if it's safe to ignore it. But when you have asserts in there, it just dumps the program straight out, and particularly with Windows, it leaves people sort of like going, well, what happened, you know? So better to put an error message up, and that's generally why I don't use asserts in anything. Dear Paul, where's my code at? I'll think about giving you a secret code later, Chris. Alright, so we can see it's logging, and the values are correct. Now, the only thing is, see this is where it's going to get fun. I have to, it's showing numerically on the screen the same, like 0.01 or whatever. But that's supposed to be 0.01 millivolts, not 0.01 volts that the log is showing. So I need to scale the value depending on, yeah, so it's going to be a bit more work here. So what I'm going to have to do is, so like here, where we can, like we've got the current, and if we're in milliamp, we need to multiply the log value by 1,000. And if we're in microamps, we need to multiply by 1,000,000. So I propose that we add a additional variable. Say we will call it log scale. And we can use an integer for that, because it's only going to be an SI unit scale. And type log scale. I'm getting dirty now. I'm just mixing up my variable declarations and initializations in one spot here. What every programmer wants. Nice mismatch stuff. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to assume every time we read a new line from the meter, we should do it here, that the log scale, oops, is going to be 1. So by default, we're going to assume it's 1. And if it's not, like if we come across a multiplier, so here, log scale equals 1,000,000. Check that's right. Ooh, yeah. No, that's 100,000, Paul. There you go, 1,000,000. Whereas here, 1000. And here. Capacitance is going to be an interesting one, although it wouldn't be used that much. I've noticed this meter seems to just sit on nanofarads. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen a multimeter like these ones work really well with capacitance anyway. But I suppose we should put it in. Let's see. Yeah, I think it's... I doubt this meter would ever measure farads directly. So if it's in nanofarads, it's not going to make a difference. The log scale is going to stay the same. I don't think there's anything else I have to scale in that case. I think that's going to be good. I suppose I should change the time to something that... Oops. One decimal place time value divided by 10.0. Let's make what? Log scale set but not used? Are you kidding me? Oh yeah, of course it's not used. Times log scale. Alright, when printf statements start getting a little long and windy, I like to break them up per line, like that. So you've got all your placeholders there, and then each line represents the variable that goes in there. Just makes it easier to read for later. Alright. See if that works now. Now this is now interesting because let's get the legs folded up into the Zen position here. Really? I did the volts wrong. If it's 30 millivolts, I actually should divide by 1000. We scaled it slightly wrong. But then how do I represent that? I suppose I can make a floating point. Kind of ruins the beauty of doing it all in integer. No, what am I thinking? I got this backwards. No, I've just got it backwards, that's all. Instead of multiplying, I should divide it. Alright, let's try that again. Don't need you anymore. But, of course, we need more decimal places now. You see, it's gone, it's off scale. So 6 decimal places. That should do it. Why keep tailing the log file? There we go. And let's see, no. So that's 0.03. Is it 1 millivolt, 1/10 of a millivolt, 100th of a millivolt, 300ths of a millivolt. Yep. Oops. Don't turn it off. I broke it by turning it off. It lost its Bluetooth connection. Ah. There we go, back up. So this is reading 342 millivolts, and you can see the log file is producing pretty much that. Hey, game music. And as I said, the start, we can see we've got the seconds ticking away. So how many seconds is this on average? We've got 0.6 okay, it looks like it's 0.6 of a second. So it's a little faster than I thought. Must be my old age. But yeah, so roughly 0.6 of a second between queries. It's not too bad. Let's see what happens when we change. Still in volts. It's going to be interesting. Wonder if we should leave it as the ohm symbol or whether we should change it to something like R. So select. So that's a diode mode. Continuity mode. Capacitance. Back to standard. Frequency. Okay. Gain. I really hate the... I really much prefer the little circle for degrees. Oh well. Alright, well, that seems to be working alright. So, we've got our log working. Nice. Normally that would take me about 10 minutes instead of an hour, but, you know, if you want to do live streams, that's what happens. Does it have a hold function? Yes, it does. Let's see. There, and where's hold? There it is. There we go. It shows up hold. It also has a min max. So let's move this over here. Min. Interesting. The log file. Yeah, that's good. It shows what's on screen. And hold that down. It resets. There's also duty mode, like if you're in frequency count, there's duty as well. So it's got pretty much everything covered in it. Let's see. Fahrenheit. 84 degrees Fahrenheit. Sounds warm. 28 degrees at 3 o'clock in the morning. Lovely. Well, if nothing else, it makes a good temperature logger. That's about the only thing that really... oh, it's getting warm now. 29. Lovely. It also has a delta mode. I'm not sure if that works how I want, but... There we go. Delta. Okay. That's cool. Oh. So back to that. It's not really that tricky to do it. Most of it is all just understanding that these meters, because they have a limited sort of, they're little microcontrollers in there. When they want to represent various things, they're just going to use bit settings for flags. So let's see. I'll see if I can find the original block of that I had to start with. So I'm trying to think now. Where was it? I think it was Hackaday. Here we go. Alright, this here is the original data block that I found on the internet for the Owon B35. But there's a few issues with it, but it was a good enough start for me to then refine it. They had no idea what, they've got here bit 8, I think it was. Let's see, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, byte 8 they had as null, but it actually isn't. It has a very important purpose. If you don't, let's see, where does D8? D8 tells you if you're in min or max mode or you're on low battery. I found that out by accident. Let's see. It also tells you whether your capacitance is in nanofarad, even though it doesn't seem to get switched. But yeah, it's not a null byte. There's actually plenty of uses for it. It's been used for many things, rather. Well, that's sort of how to handle it. Anyway, but still these sort of fixed values here, 49, 41, 17, all that, they are a combination of multiple flags, and that's why it was a bit of a mess initially when I went through it. But yeah, when you map these things out into hex or into binary and you have a look at them, you can see the flags coming on and off when you start switching the modes on this. And that's the way you just work it backwards. But at least it was there. That was a good starting point. It took away it made it easy to get into this. Let's see. From the ashes, gotta go. Thanks for the stream. Thanks a lot. I'll catch up with you later. Will you be buying a UV curing station from Lewis? I've already got a UV lamp, so I don't need one. I do have to get a quick hot air from him. I've just sort of ran through a whole bunch of really big bills last week, so even though he's got stock, I can't quite yet get it, but I will. It's just a case of wait for some money to pick up again. Things have been really good lately, particularly now that I've got the microscope and everything else. It's, picking up a lot more jobs. Owon is a Chinese meter because it sounds kind of Australian. Yeah, it's definitely... It's not the cheapest of meters I've dealt with. I've got some really cheap ones that I've experimented with in the past. It's definitely not as good as I thought it would be based on the pictures, because pictures lie. Initially I thought this blue covering here, I thought that was a peel off protector, but it's not. It's part of the casing. The dial itself is a little bit too stiff to turn, a bit chunky, and the stand could be better on the back, but for $50 US, I can't complain. It does what I want. It's good enough, and that's what matters. And it works very nicely on Linux with the Bluetooth. I really like the fact that I can do the on-screen display like this with text, because if you look at what other people have got, say like Lewis's, they've got to use the color key type merging of the Open Broadcaster, so that it sort of washes away all the text, all the backgrounds to make it transparent, and also the fringes of the text aren't really that clear. Whereas this, it's dead set clear. I can change the font to what I want, I can change the size, and best of all, I don't have to readjust all my settings every single time I start Open Broadcaster. The text source that I set stays fixed no matter what. So it's really nice and clean. Put it in the sun. I don't think it won't last very long in this sun around here. Works very iffy lately. I've been stubborn, not wanting to give up on a problem. Sometimes bites me in the hind ear. Yeah, Greg, that's pretty bad when that happens. I've got, well, you know that, I don't know if you watched the TriStar, or what I thought was the TriStar the other night. Pardon me, that's still biting me in the butt. Everything's working. but I have some kind of a drain on the phone that it's roughly about 10 to 12 hours it will drain the battery. But everything seems to work, other than the fact that when you plug in with no battery, you do not get the Apple logo. So there's something joining, there's a common element, I think, between it draining fast and it not coming up with just the lightning port. It's not the TriStar. I've had 4 TriStars on there, and it will charge if the battery is dead flat, like flat to the point where it won't show the insert lightning cable logo or anything like that. When it just stays completely black, it still will boot up and charge once you plug the lightning cable in there. There's no drain when it's turned off, and when you let the when you boot it and then shut it, turn the screen off and let it settle down, it does settle down to around about, I think, about 15-30 milliamp, but I think it's sort of waking up more periodically and going up to a higher current draw more often than it should. So there's something in there, and I've got to find it, but it's just one of those really niggly things. And the fact that it's such a slow drain means I can't really use thermal searching for it, so it's going to be one of those fun to find things. Let's see. Finally, with the text on the Open Broadcaster, I find Impact is probably one of the better fonts to use because it's got a very fat body, but it's still very clear. And then when you have the black outline on it, it kind of has a bit of a what is it? What's that violent game? I can't think of it. GTA or something like that. Gran Turismo, is it? No, that's it. Whatever. Anyway. YouTube subscription freed in my account is acting up again. Losing updates to all the subscriptions and they no longer show up. Yeah, that's not good. Yeah. I had YouTube offer me they've got a new beta version, whatever, of the studio management where you can sort of see what your subscription counts are, who's watching, things like that. But I really didn't like it at this point, so I've switched back. Hopefully they don't force it on us. They're obviously going through a bit of a let's change things to make it look more modern phase right now. UV comment was for someone else. Oh, okay. Grand Theft Auto, thank you. Thank you very much. I don't play games very much. I think the only thing I play lately is, it's been about a year since I played Dota 2. I've got Torchlight 2, but I don't know, Torchlight 2 is very similar to Diablo 2, but there's something missing in Torchlight 2. I don't know what the difference is, but it doesn't have the compelling feel that Diablo 2 has, and I don't know why. And it's frustrating because it looks like it should have, but yeah, I played it and I've gone through the multiple levels and multiple hardnesses, but it just doesn't grip me like Diablo 2 does. I think Diablo, the treasure hunting aspect was the real thing for me. And I know Torchlight has that, but it just, something different about it. Anyway. Oh, that's okay, Sinest. I know I'm saying your name wrong, but I will call you Sinest for now. Well, that's pretty much it. We've added. Oh, I better put that up to GitHub. So we go git status, git add Owon CLRC, mit was git push. And this is a bit where I do a bit of hiding. Alright, that's it. Now that should all be up at GitHub. Probably should man, I always forget to adjust the README. I probably should make mention of the file format. Hey, fixing things. Fixing a 6S Plus. Had headphones on. Missed the notification. Ah, nah. What was the fault with the 6S Plus headphones? What was causing it? Let's see. Do I have a favorite channel? I never really subscribed to anyone until I found Lewis's channel, and even subscribing to Lewis's channel was a bit of a reluctant thing initially. I think when I first bumped into, someone else suggested to me to look at Lewis's channel, and I think the first one that I saw of Lewis's was he had just received LED lights for his shelves, and I think they were glass shelves or something like that. But yeah, generally I'm reluctant to pick up reluctant to go subscribe to new places. But once I started hearing the audio quality on Lewis's videos, then I sort of was pretty much hooked, because he's one of the first people that seemed to have good quality video, good quality audio, and he was on a topic that I was at least partially interested in, and it sort of grew from there. And yeah, it's only been a bit over a year, but quite a lot's changed. I enjoy watching Cody's Lab, just some of the things that he comes up with, and does, just on out of scraps around the yard or whatever. I find it quite informative. Obviously I watch a lot of other people's stuff, like Chris and Jason STS, Jason Vilmer, Chris Long, Jessa, of course. I have a collection there. In terms of actually like favorites that I'm addicted to and all that, I wouldn't say I really have any as such. Not unless I like, say, I don't know, maybe a Rick and Morty, but no, I won't get into that. But yeah, there's a collection I have, and I think my subscriptions are visible to the public people if you look at my personal profile on YouTube. CSDS posted 2 videos, one on warranty repair on backlight and one on Bitcoin. Yeah, he's been having fun with Bitcoin, Jason. It's been driving him mad. 6S Plus. You're listening to stuff, right? No cameras at the front or rear was damaged. I was going to say LDO probably would be dead on that. That's good that you fixed it. Find it funny how long everyone has been talking with each other. I have followed Lewis for years now. I'm your favorite, Jack. Someone who actually knows to call me Jack. That's good. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think Lewis's videos really, or the people that he sort of collected around him, he's got a way of getting everybody to, like, what can I say? He's got a way of encouraging people to engage with him, and the way he talks about things and the way he shares his information is very much at your level type thing. And there's no, he's not acting like a high and mighty person or anything like that. His whole sort of ground level type approach, I think, is what helped him get such a great audience. And of course, you know, his opinions on things is really good. And like I said, for me, it was the video quality and the audio quality just really trumped it for me. Probably shouldn't say Trump when I'm referring to Lewis, but anyway. Will the GitHub version have comments? Well, the GitHub version is the one that I've been working on right now. There's some comments in there. I wouldn't say a lot, but there are some. I tend to, when it comes to comments in source code, I prefer to sort of indicate what I'm about to do in a block of code rather than individually, unless it's something really specific. Pardon me, rather than individually comment every line. I like to think that I write the code in such a way that it is readable as a comment in itself. So like this section here, hopefully to someone reading it, it's moderately obvious that I'm testing for flags, you know, the individual bits in those particular bytes, and then trying to compose a string that indicates the modem state. I've had complaints from people saying that my code is a little bit verbose. I don't tend to, how could you say, I would prefer to write something slightly long-winded than have something written fancy. Like maybe compound statements, excessive compound statements, I should say, because this here is a bunch of compound statements. The whole compact if-then test is, this is actually one of the features in C that I wish more languages would pick up. This whole ability where you can do, as a parameter, a test with a true-false outcome. So like I'm going, does byte 7 have, in this case, the 9th bit set? That doesn't make sense. What? No, 1, 0. Sorry, the 5th bit set. If it does, then it's DC mode. If it doesn't, then we just, you know, set this first parameter here in the formatting string to an empty string. So it's either going to, if that bit is set, it'll put DC space in there. If it's not set, it just leaves it blank. Anyway, so I like to write my code in this sort of way because it's clear, at least in my opinion, as to what it's doing. There's no obfuscation, there's no elitism, or at least I try to think there's not. There's no, yeah, I've seen code produced by some people who like to be like, I'm a hacker type thing, or an elite hacker, and they fuse the code and compact the code to the point where it really just isn't legible. I mean, you can work it out if you put your time into it, but it's really more there as a dick-waving contest than anything else, and it's pointless. It's like, oh, whoop-de-doo, you know, wow, you created a bit of fancy code. Well, everyone's really going to be impressed by that. I think it's, you got more chance of attracting people to work on your code, add features, or yeah, help you fix bugs if you make it a little more verbose and a little clearer. Anything else is generally a disservice to it being serviceable. I think that's the other thing, is a lot of people sort of don't think about how making code serviceable. Better to have code that's a little more open and serviceable than something that you're trying to keep as a trophy of your brilliance. Yeah, that's right, Alex. Yeah, it is like that. It's like, oh, you know, yeah, I'm so fancy, you can't work out what this is. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's some really cool competitions, like the usually annual C obfuscation code competition. That the pieces they produce in there, they are quite impressive, because when you go over them, you sort of go, oh, you know, how the hell is this person doing this? And it works on all these subtle aspects of C and code, C compilers, or the interpretation of what's been written. They're good for being able to work out where you can make mistakes in code, because it's sort of, you look at this code initially and you kind of think, I don't see how this is doing it. You know, it seems like normal code, but then the subtleties in it, the things that will actually catch you out later in real life when you do a normal code. So it's good to go over these competition entries, but that's a different sort of thing. That is a specific purpose. You're specifically writing code to be as obscure as you can possibly make it. But for daily code, oh, no way, leave that sort of thing behind. Do I like software programming? I probably do. Software coding is perhaps probably my real forte, as Jess would say, as we discussed the other week, as opposed to forte. It is my primary strength. It's been my primary job for the majority of the last 3 decades. But electronics is always more of a was until recently. When I say recently, I mean the last, say, 10 years. A secondary thing. So I was coding first, microcontrollers and electronics sort of came second. It's more recently that I've pushed electronics into the forefront, and the coding has now taken a step back, and the coding more supports me in my ability to be able to produce jigs, tools. It's a helper thing. If I think when I'm doing electronics work, I could really have a piece of equipment that did this or this for me, then it's nice to be able to have the ability to produce a circuit board, produce the firmware for it, write the code, or even just the software for data recovery or just this sort of thing. Open board view as well. A year ago, when all we really had was Landrix, and then Chlorodyte produced the initial open board view. I was like, hey, great, I can get in there and I can enhance this open board view to make it something that I want to use every day. And by using it yourself, you sort of go, I really could do with this feature. And occasionally you get that wrong. Like there's an annotations feature in there that I put a lot of work into, thinking I was going to use it. And I never really did in the end. So, sometimes you go down the wrong path. But overall, if you're using it and you're coding it, and when I say using, I mean actually using it as a user, not as a programmer. Like when I go and start working on a MacBook board or a PC laptop, then I'm using Open Board View as a user. And so if I sort of go, damn it, I don't like the way this function's working, or I find I don't like the way I'm having to press these certain keys, then you can go back and adjust it. And usually you find if you work on things like that, you produce better software as opposed to just being a pure programmer and thinking what the user's going to want. And you just sit there and go, oh, well, I'll run my tests, and hey, that works. The user can suck it if they don't like what I've done. That is a bit of a mentality problem I find with a lot of open source developers, is that they like to code, which is great, and they like what they produce, which is great, but often they produce things that aren't really tested as a user. And because a lot of open source people, myself included, don't have a lot of resources on hand, we sort of tend to throw programs out that we think are okay, but then users sort of go, that sucks, why don't you change this? And unfortunately, a lot of the time your emotions get involved and you sort of go, how dare you say that sucks? It's like, F you start a great big war. And when that happens, you often can miss out on opportunities to really improve your program to make it a genuinely successful piece of code. So, and that happens in the commercial coding world as well. But the trouble is, or I shouldn't say trouble, the advantage is if you're hired to code, then there's usually someone who's hired to test as a user. And so you get that. They send back the sort of thing that says, this doesn't work so well, or can you change this? And as a programmer, you usually sort of go, God damn, those users are useless, they don't know anything. But that's the reality is, if the user's complaining about it, and particularly if it's more than just one complaint, then maybe you should look at changing it. But that's a whole another debate on its own. Let's see, watching Lewis's stream today was frustrating because once upon a time it was better watching him doing the repairs. Now he's got his elves doing all the work. Paul loves nursing his boards so slowly. Okay, I know you're talking about the other Paul, so no need for clarification there. You can all call me Jack, by the way, I don't mind. I'm not surprised Paul sort of is cautious in what he's doing. I mean, I think originally the job was for someone to just simply disassemble the boards, reassemble the boards, a general helping hand there. But I think Paul obviously is showing a good degree of skill in the repairs type thing, or he's been given the opportunity to do so. And so now, I guess that's sort of what he does more of. But it may be just still early days for him, so he doesn't want to screw up, particularly in front of Lewis. I don't blame him. And he's just sort of being careful, which is better to be that than pretending he knows everything, I guess. Or even if you do know things, just the general daily jitters. You want to do your best to not stuff things up, particularly when you're on live stream. I know all about that. But I mean, I do agree. I prefer it when you're talking with Lewis, you're interacting with Lewis, and you're watching Lewis doing things. I mean, that's his brand. But I guess he's sort of trying. He's pretty sick, I imagine, of doing them himself. So he's probably happy to try a few different things. What's your favorite language? I'm probably going to drop a few a few subscribers for this. Definitely I like C. It fits what I do very well, or I choose projects that fit C well. I don't know which one it is. Maybe it's a bit of both. Now this is where I'm going to lose subscribers. I actually like PHP a lot. And maybe it's a bit of a being grateful for PHP, but back in it would have been 1999 or so, 2000, early 2000. I was involved in doing a dynamic website for a large telecommunications group, and it was just murderously bad, whether I did it in C or whether I did it in Perl, through CGI bin or whatever. It was a nightmare, and this was on Apache with Linux. And then I found PHP. And when you go from having to compile stuff or dig your way through Perl with its line noise code, and then all of a sudden you can do things so easy in PHP, it's like a revelation. Your whole world just feels so much lighter. So for that, I like PHP a lot. I know it's got security issues. I know it's like the English language. It's just like a big amalgamation of all different things. There's poor consistency. It's all over the place. The other thing is PHP back then, the documentation, being able to just go onto the website and get everything you needed on the website right there and then. It was amazing, because prior to that you'd have this bookcase full of O'Reilly books that, like, O'Reilly C++, O'Reilly SendMail book. I know that pretty much by the back of my, like the back of my hand these days. Thankfully I haven't had to deal with that too much anymore. I now use postfix, much better. But so C or PHP for dynamic stuff. Python, I wanted to get into Python, but the active whitespace threw me just a little bit too much. And with Python, on top of the active whitespace, the lack of being able to do this, at least back then, also just sort of soured it for me. And at that time, you used to be able to communicate with, I can't remember his name now, but when we sort of asked for this sort of facility, it was like, get stuff nowhere, and I was like, fine, so I walked away from Python at that point. I will probably start looking at C# and definitely looking at Go. Rust, I don't think is going to really last. I suspect it's sort of going to end up like the likes of Ruby and a few other things like that. So I think Go probably has the biggest chance of moving into the future. May I have to revert back to using Chrome as my default browser rather than Firefox 57? I'm using Chrome. I used to be a Firefox person, but it just gave me too much hell with doing these streams and just chat on YouTube as well. And I went to Chrome, and until Firefox sorts that out, I'm staying with Chrome. C is best, you just have to be careful. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's really good for what I do, which is command line type filtering programs, or just command line programs. firmware in microcontrollers, and yeah, you got to be careful. But then you're aware of what you have to be careful about, you know. And these days the compilers are pretty good at pre-checking things. And then there's also Valgrind. Uh, if you're going to produce a program that you're going to put out there, then make sure you Valgrind it. If you put it through Valgrind and it comes back clear, that's a pretty good chance that it's a fairly sort of safe program, at least initially. How's the new meter going? It's going well. Let's see. The only thing is my meter stopped. Oh no, it's still ticking away. That's all good. Okay. Like I say, it's not as good as my ProTech 608, but it's good for the job at hand. I'll keep the ProTech for the high precision stuff that I need to do if I ever get around to that again. Most likely I probably won't, at least that I can see in the foreseeable future. When I talk high precision, I'm talking about like I was doing projects where I need to measure voltages representing about, what was it? Well, my low ohms meter was down to 100th, was 100th milliohm? Yeah, 100th of a milliohm. So that was 10 microohms type granularity. Being able to get down into the microvolt type ranges, things like that. So I'll keep that meter for that. It needs to be recalibrated anyway. But for repair work, yeah, this is perfectly good. I've got no problems with this. I prefer command line instead of virtual. Yeah, I definitely prefer command line. This is about as GUI as I go, which is GVim. You can either consider that as GTK Vim or GNOME Vim. I do like VI. It's obscure if you haven't ever used it before and you're not sure why it does some things, but the power it has is really nice to have. Just being able to work on the keyboard, which means if you want to do stuff remotely, like on my web servers or other remote servers, it makes life really easy to just be able to do it through the command line and having all that power. Visual Studio, it just runs so slow for me. I mean, okay, maybe I can go get an i7 or something like that and it'll run quick, but yeah, I do use it, but I do prefer to just fall back to using Vim. See, how do I know he wasn't referring to bilingual language? I didn't. I took a guess. Since we're programming, I made the assumption. So I don't really know many other languages. I know Afrikaans a little bit, which in turn means I know a little bit of German, Deutsch. Not really much else. Tiny sprinkling of French, but not much else. Afrikaans is about it. And usually mostly swearing. So, alright, what are we at? 3:30. I think it's time I went to bed. I need to get some sleep. What's the temperature at the moment? Let's have a look. 28 degrees centigrade. Unbelievable. So this is why you need a good air conditioner. To be fair, it's not too bad. I mean, 29 is better than the high 30s that we had today. But at least the software is done. The logging facility is added. I'm pretty happy with that. And if you guys want to, go to I'll bring up the GitHub page. Where are you, GitHub? There we go. There we go. That's it there. So if you do have Linux and you want to do logging or Open Broadcaster, then yeah, one of these B35s, they're cheap. They seem to work pretty good. So I will see if I can do a Windows version, but like I said, I've got to find a way of getting the data off the low energy Bluetooth, and you can do it through the generic attribute interface, but I haven't found a quick and easy way yet. So I'll just see. Yep. Okay. Just people messaging me. Alright. It's the humidity that sucks. I agree. Yep. So, oh, g'day, Dre. Didn't realise you were there. Stray77. Oh, right, you went ahead and got the logging true RMS version. So there you go. It should work. There shouldn't be any difference between the two of them. There may be another flag, though, that indicates true RMS mode, and I'm not sure how the logging mode will interface with the software. But send me a message or join up on the software, the GitHub here, and see how you go with that. Alright, okay, I'm out of here. Thank you all. I appreciate you hanging around for, how long was this? Hour and a half? Yeah, not too bad for one little feature. At least it works. And I will probably catch you next time when I'm in the workshop fixing something. I'm not sure what it's going to be. What I do have coming is the Open Broadcaster scene switcher circuit board. So hopefully they'll be here Monday, Tuesday, probably Tuesday. And that will give me the ability to just have a little switch panel in front of me, and I can sort of switch between modes rather than using the mouse and keyboard to change between, say, microscope primary or the webcam primary and things like that. So we'll see how that goes. That's going to be a 18 mega project, and it's going to use USB communications. So hopefully that works. Sorry, Bobby. Yep. Well, anyway, you all take care. I'll see you guys next time.